Mercy TV, the 29th of May, 2013.
Hello, welcome to the Mercy Weekly Meeting. We welcome our virtual crowd, such as they are. Hey, so this meeting is held every Wednesday at 7 p.m. here at 1745 Capitol Street Northeast. And it is just 3 blocks down from the old Arsenic Circle restaurant. We're on the left-hand side. We're behind the Graber Insurance building that you'll see there at 1735 officially. Come down the alley, park in the back, and come on in here to the Mercy Weekly Meeting. There is, it is open to the public. There is no fee to attend. You don't have to be a card holder to come here. And one of the things that we do here is to help folks get their card. We also network folks to medicine now in the short term, and the long term try to find you a grower or to get you growing yourself. Additionally, we talk about methods for medicating, best methods, and that usually goes back to the part about getting your card and finding growers and things like that. Also, changes whether you're making a change yourself or there's a change to the program itself. And that leads us into legislative and action items like the bills that are currently in play here in Oregon this legislative session, as well as the federal bills that are happening. Unfortunately, for our action item, the top items today are the raids that are taking place across Oregon. Want to bring up some information here. Concerning the raids that we're closest to, I know the raid took place here in the Salem area today, and we'll get all the facts on that up on our website as soon as we know them. Earlier last week, there was a series of raids that took place. There was one in Eugene, the greener side. There was Southern Oregon Normal. In Medford, also the Green Compass, Puff and Stuff, and a outlet of the Green Compass in Gold Hill was also raided as part of this cluster hump. The egregious thing about this particular one is in this raid that happened last week, 70 officers from 18 agencies went out on this this boondoggle. At the same time, a 911 dispatcher is telling a woman about to be sexually assaulted that there are no cops to help her due to budget cuts. This is atrocious and has got to be publicized, and otherwise the word spread out on it. You know, it's atrocious. The words, the adjectives fail me. I mean, I can't do it enough justice, even in using profanity here. 70 officers, 70 cops in all. I mean, they must have jammed in the doorway like the Three Stooges, as the drug warriors from the Jackson County District Attorney's Office, the Oregon State Police, the Oregon Department of Justice, Jackson County Sheriff's Office, Jackson County Community of Justice, Rogue Area Drug Enforcement Team, or RAID, the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement, or CODE Team, the Ashland Police Department, the Central Point Police Department, the Eagle Point Police Department, the Grants Pass Department of Public Safety, the Medford Police Department, the Phoenix Police Department, the Talent Police Department, the U.S. Homeland Security Investigations Department, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the U.S. Marshal Service. 70 officers in all stormed in on 4 citizens groups, totaling a total of a dozen harmless folks. One can only wonder how many cartel guards and gangs such a force could have taken out. In fact, actually we can picture the cartels seeing the news report on this, laughing their cuticles off, and then running down to the school and having a sale, hell. Or going out and assaulting people or breaking in and stealing it because they know it's like Christmas for the crooks whenever the cops go on these little jihads here. And it's no coincidence that these folks testified at hearings, were on TV talking about cannabis as medicine, and otherwise publicly spoke out and exercised their First Amendment rights. Law enforcement organizations will undoubtedly be hoping to paint these places as major drug traffickers and hoping to derail the current bills currently in play. So even more so important for folks to contact your representative and tell them yes on Senate Bill 281, which is to add PTSD to the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program, at the least. We've also seen unfortunate incidents like this in Boise, Idaho, where police waited till activists take a little vacation and swept in and snatched their kids. In Florida, a medical cannabis patient is followed home after a bill is introduced in her name and subsequently raided by police that same day. We used to go through this here in Oregon on a regular basis, so I suppose things are getting better. They didn't go raid them right after the raid. Right after the testimony. In this case, in the Medford gal, they waited 2 or 3 weeks from her testimony. We've even got film of that, I believe. I don't know if we panned the crowd at the hearing for House Bill 3460, but the police chief who just raided her was there at it along with Lori Duckworth, one of the victims there at that hearing. But that's how the cops campaign. I mean, we, Joe and Jane Citizen activists, we need to get some people together. We need to do an event, hopefully get the media there, and then we get to have our, hopefully say something for the cameras, and it gets on to the news thing. I mean, that's the process we citizens go through and do for that kind of press or coverage. But when the cops want to do the same thing, they just call the media, have them show up there, buzz people, go in with excessive force, make sure that they're all chained up, and they got several officers dragging the poor person out in front of the cameras and stuff, even though it's totally unnecessary. It's just all theater, propaganda, and crap. Cop show fodder and stuff. So hopefully folks will protest this stuff, write letters to the editor, do the other things. Mostly contact your representatives, both at the state and federal levels, and tell them yes on cannabis law reform issues. At the federal level, there's also there's a hemp bill in play, and folks should contact your senators there and make sure they say vote yes on hemp bill, your federal hemp bill. That'll mean a lot to folks. At the same time, you can talk about the medical cannabis bills currently in play. You can also talk about the legalization bills at the federal level. But start with that hemp bill. That's a no-brainer, and should at least get your foot in the door there. Our main purpose, though, for this meeting is to, for folks that come here, to network on the issues. We asked the crowd about if folks are here looking for a grower, or if you're a grower that can take on patients today.
Here is a patient that uses my healing oil, or he knows the person that. Can you give a testimonial about the healing oil?
Well, you bet. It works as a good liniment, and also it's edible, and we use it in brownies, and it does take away the pain. I have hernia just in the back, and it helped greatly. So that's why I was glad to have the help from him.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate Mercy for being here to help with the outreach that it does.
Very good. Another good feedback, testimony about the oil. Is this the same oil that?
This is the olive oil. My blessed healing oil.
Okay. So with the olive oil based, like if it was folks that use coconut oil, I think grapeseed and apple seed. Well, not usually apple, but what am I thinking of?
All the oil.
Your vegetable oils and your. Gosh, I was just at the store looking for it the other day. Canola, the canola oils too. Those after you do your making of the oil right, it can be consumed internally. You can use it in cooking. In that manner, or apply it topically to the affected areas, like in the case of folks suffering with arthritis, the pain from it, the stiffness, all those things, or heck, a broken hand. I mean, all those things involved with the tendons and joints there, not just in the extremities, but throughout the body. We've also had reports about oil being used for migraines, for the pain pressures and other things associated with that. Also with congestion, respiratory issues, oil rubbed on there just like folks would a Bengay or something like that, I suppose. And getting some positive results from that. The good part, I suppose, or one of the many good parts about using the cannabis oil or cannabis in this manner, applying it topically, is that there's no toxicity. Folks aren't going to get high. You're not going to cop a buzz off the cannabis applied that way, even though it is usually extremely potent. And if you were to consume it topically, internally, you probably wouldn't need very much to achieve the desired effect there. But that's some information to get out to folks. It's also useful when folks are getting their card to begin with. Doctors, reports we hear back are saying that they're concerned about prescribing a smoke medication or medication that you smoke with, have difficulty in the dosing and titration, along with that delivery method and so forth. So two things to update your doctor here in Oregon. Number one, they don't prescribe here with the Oregon system. They just authorize, they just okay the qualifying condition. They state, they sign a form that says you have one of the qualifying conditions. So they're not prescribing or recommending or anything having to do with cannabis themselves, but with the condition that you're using for the cannabis, they're using the cannabis for. Also, with other methods rather than smoking it, a lot more doctors are willing to sign for folks there, particularly when they hear about the vaporizing or even the topical applications, the oils there. Removes that issue with the toxicity totally. So educate your doc, get your card, come on down to the Mercy Center if you want literature supporting this information regarding cannabis as medicine and here in Oregon. Also for networking to growers, we have our bulletin board so folks can put up their contact info. The Mercy weekly meeting here is usually your best bet. We always encourage folks that come in or call the office looking for a patient, come on down here at this time. It's best to have a face-to-face discussion. Also with the other folks here who are looking to network on the same level, folks really helps to hear what they've gone through and their solutions, you know. When folks are trying to line up a grower, they should really have some numbers in mind, particularly how much they can donate to the garden and how much medicine they're going to need and you know how often. Other items that may be of interest should certainly be discussed at that time typically the grower will cure and at least prepare the medicine, deliver it in a suitable, decent packaging and so forth. Although you should make clear how often and if it's going to be delivered. I mean, there's some folks might have a transportation issue, some patients. So you want to clarify all the items you can, really. We've had one case where the grower just chopped the plant and handed it to the patient, and that wasn't going to do because they couldn't have a plant there curing any more than they could have a plant there growing, really. So that's a rare issue or item to have come up, and make sure that the grower is at least going to dry the plant properly and then possibly trim it. Make sure that it's just giving you the best part of the plant there, or the part that you're looking for. Some folks will take all the plant, take off the buds parts and chop up the rest, and that goes into their butter or oil processing then. So work these things out with your grower. Make sure you understand all those aspects that are concerning you, the patient, of course. In addition, you want to make sure of the what the kind of funding or other support the grower's going to need. Typically, folks, comes in a financial basis, and the patients out there should be informed that the patient can reimburse the grower for their expenses. So if the grower has a light bill, has a water bill, has a bill from the plant store for medicine, things like that, those are some direct numbers that you can pass on to the patient. So as far as, here's some medicine, I need X amount of dollars, this kind of conversation and activity can happen between the grower and the patient. It's for it to happen between the patient and someone who's not their grower, or the grower and somebody who's not their patient. Card holders can exchange medicine, they just can't do it for consideration. That's undoubtedly what these places that have been raided here recently are going to be charged with. They're going to be, the state and other local yokels as well as the feds are going to try to assert that these folks took money and gave medicine in direct relation to that. And hopefully the citizens will be able to prove that they didn't, although they shouldn't have to. It should be a matter of proven guilty and not have to be accused of nonsense and then prove it didn't happen. I know we're pretty certain that the authorities raiding the folks are hoping to put them in the catch-22. Certainly, as these folks, if these folks were to attempt to prove to the charges that they sold it, if they try to prove that they gave it away, that is then going to be used, that's a federal crime, and then their testimony is going to be used as evidence against them at the next level, at the next, quote, trial, if you will. So it's a kind of a catch-22, and we really need for the folks out there to, and out there in virtual TV land, lend their support. Like as we said, write letters to the editor. We need to publicize the fact, publicize the cost, show the effect to society of having all the other criminals come out to play when they come after us potheads like this, especially in this excessive force, everybody jumping on board because they can boondoggle that we saw here, and will continue to see. Taking a lot of medicine out of the system there. A lot of folks going to be hurting now. Hundreds of folks across the state, their gardens gone, the resources they had temporarily gone. Everybody's going to be going underground, really, except for the black market. But then authorities, these guys are all good with that. They'll turn and spin that around on us too. They'll insist that the increase in marijuana out there on the street is all the fault of the medical cannabis. So again, you folks need to write letters to the editor, contact your representative, and otherwise counter this propaganda campaign. In the meantime, you know, we're still trying to, as I said, help folks get their cards, network to Medicine Now in the short term. Like I said, even more important with the raids. In fact, we got a call from Medford. Some guy was all hot about it, and you know, what are we going to be doing about it? Well, we're trying to get Medicine together to get down, to send down to folks there. I know they need to try to open that place again to help with the medicine and other things. That's going to take some volunteers probably. We need folks that are card holder volunteers so they can hold on to medicine and give it to folks that may be coming in. We're also going to need to resources there to try and get folks self-sufficient as possible, get not just medicine, but clones, seeds, other things down there to folks. And least but no means last, funding. Try to organize fundraising for the legal defenses, obviously, as well as these places now. Again, had all their stuff taken, try to get their back on their feet again, helping out the folks there, the hundreds of folks now suffering, going to be suffering soon. And as we said, to then hit the legislative boards and to prepare for the upcoming in 2014 and 2016. We're going to have a chance to de-elect and otherwise disempower some of the jerks on these little crusades here this week, today, this weekend. Late last year there was a series of raids. We're still dealing with those too. But for what it's worth, the the teams of folks that are waiting to go to every court hearing that these people have are already formed, and we're just waiting for the first ones. And the first court appearance is happening June 6th, 8:30 a.m. in Eugene at the Lane County Courthouse. Chelsea and Jennifer of the greener side down there in Eugene are having their court appearances there. Everyone show up that can, dress appropriately, leave your all your contraband in your vehicle. Don't try to bring it in the courthouse. That's no weapons, no pipes, no medicine, no nothing. Nothing that you don't want them to look in that purse or pull out of your pockets and have them see and get in trouble. But do dress, get down there. We're going to try and get media there, maybe some protest action outside before and after. But certainly, as I said, get people on the email list to know when these hearings are happening and other actions that we can take to help out these folks and prevent their reoccurrence in the future. Only by us getting together and acting in this manner are we going to put a halt to them. We want to get to the point, in fact, that we have raid support. As soon as we know these raids are happening, we get people on scene to film, to give evidence and witness to what happens to these poor Slavs, to their property, to the stuff there. Also, organize jail support. We want to try and get some visuals outside the prisons where these folks are caged for any length of time. Then, as we said, raid support for the places, people, families where we can. One thing that was suggested is that we establish some people that could that are already approved by the state. So when they jerk their kids out of somebody's custody, we have a family already known that we can have step forward and take kids in when they're taken by the state in these cases. So we've got a lot of defensive maneuvers that we're going to respond with here. That again, as I said, we're going to culminate in putting an end to this by de-electing, otherwise disempowering the officials involved, starting with the legislators, police chiefs, DAs, judges, anybody who's in an elected position, certainly on the chopping block here. And that's how we're going to get change, real positive, effective change. Talking briefly about the legislative stuff that's happening, we have a legalization bill in play in the Oregon state this year, which is probably why some of this is happening. If it fails to advance in 2014, there's going to be an initiative for legalization. Paul Stanford is already putting out polls, working on it. We've had two other groups come into the state, talk about it. I think Safer Oregon is one, and the other one escapes me for the moment. But there's definitely going to be some legalization initiative action happening 2014. And in 2016, the Marijuana Policy Project has stated they're going to be putting forth an initiative here in Oregon for legalization if necessary. It's coming, and these actions by the prohibitionists to try to delay it, to flail around, to grab a little more gold and stuff while they can, hopefully will just hasten the end. Hopefully the folks will wake up and see this stuff, see the cost, see the lack of benefit, and we keep trying to connect the dots to follow the money for folks so they see, you know, how does this thing keep going on? Who's funding it and all? And put an end to that thing by cutting off its funding resources. But we're going to need everybody to make that happen. So everybody has to register and vote, and then get everybody they know to do so also, and then get everybody you don't know yet. That's the only way, folks. So aside from the oils, has there been any other medication methods? You talked about brownies. Did you use the oils in the making of the brownies?
Yeah. Used about 1/4 of a cup of the oil with a package of brownie mix, and a small brownie about 1 inch square is enough to get me out of pain, and didn't have to smoke any that evening. So I was mostly using it as a liniment, but when I ran out of medicine that I normally smoke, I decided to try eating it because he said that it would be maybe good on a salad. But it worked, created the brownies, and kept me out of pain. I slept great that night. For the next couple of days, that's how I used the medicine as an edible. And I recommend it to any patient out there who has chronic pain. That it is not just a liniment, that it is edible, and it's very good oil. Thank you.
Well, that's an excellent example there. In the day use, using it topically, not consuming internally, not smoking, zero risk of overdose or toxicity there in that case. And then at the nighttime, consuming it internally, did you have any adverse effects? You didn't have any?
None at all.
None, see. So, and for folks that do, be advised, the worst case scenario of overdosing on cannabis in this form, that concentrated like that, is that you're going to get dizzy, you're going to get sick, and that's it. The two worst things that happen to you. So don't call the hospital, don't go get your stomach pumped, don't try to get some narcotics or something to counter the cannabis there. Just lay down, let it work its thing, and next time learn about properly dosing and titrating your medicines, particularly in that form. We're constantly having that issue here at Mercy. We'll give them a cookie or some of the other baked goods. We'll tell them to take a very little bit first, just a nibble even, and then wait some time, a measurable time on that for the effect. And then it take a little bit more, a little bit more. Seriously, we encourage folks to take it and quarter it up and start with that quarter of a cookie dosage there in that manner. But invariably, they'll munch a whole cookie down and then not feel anything right away, then have another, and then, or more, and then bam, it'll hit them. And they're not feeling well, and it's not a good use of the medicine. Like we said, especially when you throw it up, then that's really a waste of it. But when you learn to manage it properly, get that dose right, the effect is a full night's sleep. The worst case in that is folks are a little groggy when they wake up, and they'll learn over time and if that's an adverse, if folks have issues with it. I mean, and again, there's not a coordination issue. This isn't a thing that affects you like alcohol. It's not a motor coordination problem. You're not going to stumble, fall down, have troubles with that in that regard. But we certainly don't discourage caution. We don't encourage folks to go out, operate heavy machinery and stuff until you learn yourself the proper dosage and so forth. But when it does, the effects are tremendous. I mean, these folks have a quality of life. You can go out and do stuff because of it, because you're able to apply it in the manners prescribed there, and you're able to have a good night's sleep at the same time. Your eating patterns improve, and so forth. It's just the reverse of what happens with the pharmaceutical cycle, where you end up taking pills for things, and you're ending up not eating well and not sleeping well, and this whole cycle of unhealthiness there, of not getting those things taken care of, whereas cannabis does the opposite. Breaks that vicious cycle of not eating, not sleeping, not able to get stuff done, so that your whole mental state, your whole attitude really is involved there. Which is interesting given prohibitionist claims of depression causing it. But I guess the pain and stuff that folks are going through are a lot more depressing, so cannabis relieves them and frees them from that, so forth. Another aspect, though, that we should talk about, it's another element involved with folks medicating and choosing their medicine for day use or night use fee, and that is indicas versus sativas. Indicas generally are more sedative, I guess. They're more likely to give you what they refer to as couch lock, but at the same time, they're a lot of your pain centric, your sleep apnea as well. Sativas are regarded as providing energy as opposed to locking you down as the indica does, generally, although you can overdose on sativas as well and end up in the same state. So get your information, come on down to the Mercy Center. We're also open Monday through Friday, noon to 6. We can come on down and get some literature like the Oregon Cannabis Connection, which has all this information as well as recipes and a list of resources that are around the state. So come and get yours. Get a couple, get a bunch, take them out, spread them around. Your friends and family will thank you for it. Trust us. Okay, take care, guys.
You bet.
And you folks, come on down, check us out at the Mercy Weekly Meeting. Again, that's Wednesdays, 7 p.m., 9 p.m.-ish, you know, it depends. We certainly do the filming here for as long as that goes. And all the news and information. Speaking of which, I will try to... You said we've got some news items. Other news items, not just the raids here in Oregon. There's also the legislative items happening here in Oregon and at the federal level. So folks, please, please, please contact your representatives, both in the Senate and the House. And be sure to spread the word. Tell everybody. Everybody you know, and everybody you don't know. Yet. Excuse me. Excuse me while I whip this up. And for our source of news, we go to NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, where we see that a poll out of New Jersey says over 90% of Americans oppose jailing marijuana possession offenders. Here's an interesting story. Regular cannabis use associated with the reduced risk factors for type 2 diabetes. Subjects who regularly consume cannabis possess favorable indices related to diabetic control as compared to occasional consumers or non-users of the substance, according to trial data published in the American Journal of Medicine. Researchers at Harvard Medical School and the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston assessed the relationship between marijuana use and fasting, insulin, glucose, and insulin resistance in a sample of 4,657 male subjects. Investigators reported that subjects who reported using marijuana in the past month had lower levels of fasting insulin and HOMA-R, that is, insulin resistance, as well as a smaller waist circumference and higher levels of HDL-C, or high-density lipoprotein, or good cholesterol. These associations were attenuated among those who reported using marijuana at least once, but not in the past 30 days, suggesting that the impact of marijuana use on insulin and insulin's resistance exists during periods of recent use. Writing in an accompanying commentary, American Journal of Medicine and editor-in-chief Joseph S. Alpert, MD, stated, "These are indeed remarkable observations that are supported, as the authors note, by basic science experiments that came to similar conclusions. I would like to call on the NIH and the DEA to collaborate in developing policies to implement solid scientific investigations that would lead to information assisting physicians in the proper use and prescription of THC in its synthetic or herbal form. One can only hope." So this guy's going to call on the NIH, or the National Institute of Health, and the DEA, or Drug Enforcement Administration, to further allow studies on this important fact about cannabis for diabetes, hopefully as well as medicine in general. In Illinois, lawmakers authorized a medical marijuana pilot program. In Arizona, majority of adults support legalizing marijuana for adults. California, there's a study, no association between cumulative consumption of cannabis smoke and lung cancer risk. In other words, cannabis does not cause cancer. Also, inhaled cannabis reduces Crohn's symptoms. Tel Aviv, Israel. Inhaling cannabis reduces symptoms of Crohn's disease compared to placebo in patients who have not been responsive to traditional therapies, according to clinical trial data published online in the Journal of Clinical Gastroenterology and Hepatology. Researchers at the Meyer Medical Center, Department of Gastroenterology and Hepatology in Israel, assessed the safety and efficacy of inhaled cannabis versus placebo in 21 subjects with Crohn's disease who had failed to respond to conventional treatments. 11 participants smoked standardized cannabis cigarettes containing 23% THC and 0.5% CBD or cannabinol twice daily over a period of 8 weeks. The other 10 subjects smoked placebo cigarettes containing no active cannabinoids. Investigators reported, "Our data show that 8 weeks treatment with THC-rich cannabis, but not placebo, was associated with a significant decrease of 100 points in the CDAI, or Crohn's Disease and Activity Index scores. 5 of the 11 patients in the study group also reported achieving disease remission, defined as a reduction in the patient's CDAI score by more than 150 points. Researchers reported that no significant side effects were associated with the cannabis inhalation. The study is the first placebo-controlled clinical trial to assess the consumption of cannabis for the treatment of Crohn's. We can only hope that that information will somehow find its way to the hearts of the prohibitionists. Well, screw them, they're probably never going to get it. So you, Joe and Jane Citizen, you need to grab this information, use it to inspire you to get out there, register, vote, everybody you know to do so also. Make sure these bills pass, currently happening. Support your local medical cannabis organization. Go down there, spend some volunteer time. And so forth. And here we have PK. By the way, PK,
Yes.
the cannabis that goes into the oil,
Yes.
is that a sativa or indica or a mix?
A mix.
Get the best of both worlds there. Okay. So, also, Colorado lawmakers approve first-in-the-nation regulations governing the retail marijuana production and sales. I believe the governor has signed that one in, so go Colorado. In Vermont, lawmakers approve marijuana decriminalization measure. Another poll, nationwide support for medical marijuana legalization at an all-time high. Pun and not intended, I'm sure. Oh, some bad news. In California, the Supreme Court upholds authority of cities to prohibit medical marijuana facilities. Tisca, tisca. Reasonable controls, I suppose, we're not opposed to, but stuff that's guaranteed just to chase folks out of town, eh. Here, out of Pennsylvania, study, synthetic THC mitigates HIV infection. Here is one that's no surprise to a majority of American citizens. GAO, the Government Administration Organization, report administration's anti-drug strategies fail to meet stated objectives. Gee, that's too bad. They got all the money, in fact more, this budget cycle, where everybody else is having to cut back. Such a reward for failing. Wow, here's an interesting poll. Let's bring this news information up and we'll read off the vital statistics here. A poll coming out of Washington, D.C. Half of younger Christians back legalizing marijuana. Most Americans don't view plants use as a sin. Half of young Christians favor legalizing marijuana, according to a poll data released last week by the Public Religion Research Institute. Among self-identified Christians aged 18 to 29, 45% said that they had used cannabis and 32% said that they strongly favored its legalization. 18% said that they favored the policy change. By contrast, only 9% of Christians aged 65 and older endorsed allowing adults to legally consume the plant. Overall, 39% of Christians polled favored legalization, while 54% opposed the idea. Among those respondents who were religiously affiliated, 66% backed legalizing marijuana. Among all respondents, 70% said that consuming cannabis recreationally is not a sin, compared to 23% who said they believed that consuming the plant was sinful. A separate national poll conducted by the Pew Research Center early this month reported that 32% of respondents believed that consuming marijuana was morally wrong, down 18% from 2006. The PRRI survey interviewed 1,000 U.S. adults and possesses a margin of error of plus or minus 3.5%. For more information, contact Alan St. Pierre, Normal Executive Director, at 202-483-5500 or visit mercycenters.org. You can get this story, more, the contact info associated with it, and sometimes there's a bulletin board for you to comment on the story as well. In Hawaii, lawmakers approve measures to amend state's medical cannabis program, hopefully in a positive way. Let's take a look-see and find out. Okay, here we have House Bill 668, which transfers the administration of the state's medical cannabis program from the Department of Public Safety, or the police, to the Department of Public Health. It also establishes a special fund for the program within the state treasury. Senate Bill 642 increases the quantity of medical cannabis that may be possessed by qualified patients from 3 ounces to 4 ounces. The measure also allows patients to grow a total of 7 mature plants for their own personal therapeutic use. Under the present law, patients are allowed to cultivate no more than 3 mature plants at any one time. So hopefully, those bills will be approved by the governor, and will take effect there in Hawaii in January of 2015. So folks out there, contact each and everybody you know in Hawaii and have them thank their representatives and hit up the governor. Tell him, just say yes to medical cannabis in Hawaii. Meanwhile, federal lawmakers call for a presidential commission to review U.S. marijuana policies. I wonder if it'll be something like the Schaefer Commission that Nixon had done back in the 70s. As folks may or may not recall, after this commission that Nixon called up, looked at the issue and said, hey, we should legalize marijuana and stop this war. Nixon batted it aside and then upped the thing on the war and to this current bullshit levels that we suffer through here today. And for much the same reason we suffer through here today. Nixon was the first one to use the marijuana laws to go after enemies for political purposes, and now it's just one political agenda for them now. Meanwhile, a majority of adults endorse regulating marijuana use like alcohol. The Supreme Court rules that non-citizens do not face mandatory deportation for minor marijuana violations. That's good news. That goes along with another news item. The Veterans Administration has put forth a policy to no longer test and jerk away benefits from veterans over marijuana or cannabis. So be advised that that's happening, and contact mercycenters.org for more information on that if you want to get the specific place to see that statement, the official documentation from the VA and so forth. I mean, it doesn't mean that the VA docs can sign for people's cards or anymore or stuff like that, but hopefully your local VA is not going to test it for and jerk you out of your benefits for marijuana. Also, federal lawmakers introduced measure to respect state marijuana laws, so contact your federal lawmakers, tell them yes on cannabis law reform. Also, 3 out of 4 Washington, D.C. residents favor eliminating criminal penalties for minor marijuana violations. As folks may or may not know, there is a medical marijuana law in D.C. It is unique in that they are actually under federal jurisdiction there and had to face a tougher nut to crack to get their law. Also going to face a tougher nut in getting dispensaries and the like set up there. But they're moving forward on it. Meanwhile, in St. Louis, city officials approved municipal measure to decriminalize minor marijuana offenses. In Maryland, lawmakers approved measure to establish medical marijuana compassionate use programs. Currently in Maryland, their medical marijuana law consists of an affirmative defense in court, where the most that they can fine you for then is $100. Still, they get to drag you in court and stack you with the $100 thingy. I don't know how effective it is, how much has reduced it, but they need a real medical marijuana program and dispensaries and everything else in Maryland. In the meantime, in Oregon, in Kentucky, hemp research measure becomes law. And folks should also be aware of the federal hemp bill in play. Contact your federal lawmakers. Also, the U.S. Supreme Court limits warrantless use of drug sniffing dogs. And in Rhode Island, marijuana decriminalization law takes effect, so they decriminalized in Rhode Island, along with their medical cannabis law that they have there. Interesting, low doses of THC provide cardio protection. That is cardiopulmonary issues, so that's a good thing. Indiana, lawmakers mulling provisions to felonize marijuana possession offenses. So they're kind of going backwards there in Indiana. But there's a study, cannabis smoking associated with significantly better health outcomes than tobacco smoking. Of course, we all know that. But that's in Australia. Hopefully, again, that will make its way, just like the stuff in Israel, to here in the U.S. Also in Missouri, poll finds majority support for regulating marijuana. Let's go, Missouri. Show me, you state, how to get her done. United Nations, 3/4 of world's illicit drug users consume cannabis. So potheads make up 3/4 of the world's drug war there. So it just goes to show that we're the cornerstone of their whole freaking war, and that's why they're not going to let us go without a fight. In New York City, cops spend 1 million hours in staff time making marijuana possession arrests. Certainly have better things to do with that. Canada, Vancouver, British Columbia, at-home marijuana gardens are not associated with adverse health effects among children. In North Carolina, most voters support making marijuana law enforcement a low priority. But let's hope they get their way in North Carolina. In California, a field poll reports record high support for legalizing marijuana. Well, you should hope so in freaking California. But when it hits there among the professional marijuana growers, maybe they'll get some change. Because right now, they're fighting legalization just as solidly as the prohibitionists, I tell you. In Hawaii, also voting for decriminalizing marijuana. In Florida, 7 in 10 voters back constitutional amendment to legalize medical marijuana. In Italy, study psychoactive, non-psychoactive cannabinoid that is that a cannabinoid that's not going to get you high mitigates colitis. And here it talks about the medical cannabis protection measures reintroduced in the U.S. Congress. And in Czechoslovakia, they legalized cannabis for medical use. So Czechoslovakia can be added to the list of countries there with some kind of medical cannabis provisions. Italy, I believe, is something going on there. Certainly the Netherlands, everyone's heard about that. Also Spain has a program going on, and a couple of others there. So folks, visit our website, mercycenters.org, check out our international, global web pages, look at our European continent page, and see what information we have there. This is the Mercy Weekly Meeting. It happens every Wednesday here at 1745 Capitol Street Northeast from 7 to 9-ish p.m. Folks, come on down to network on the issues around medical cannabis, that is getting your card, finding medicine now, networking to find a grower or to get growing yourself, best methods on medicating, and changes, whether you're making a change yourself or changes to the program. Also, news and information. Study: oral THC administration mitigates sleep apnea. There's a gentleman who was here saying, hey, he uses the cannabis to sleep, especially when you make it in your cookies and brownies. There, get that nice concentration. It's going to plateau when you consume it orally there in that manner. Michigan court rules: cannabis dispensaries are not permitted. Oh, bad news, Michigan.
Excuse me, Perry?
Yes, sir.
It's getting to that time.
About time to wrap it up, folks. So if you want to catch all the latest news, visit our website at mercycenters.org. Or come on down to the center. We're open Monday through Friday, noon to 6. And grab your Oregon Cannabis Connection or check up on the news and information. Also, folks can check us out, Channel 23, Fridays, 7 p.m. We're there with the Mercy live call-in show. So don't just sit there like a bump on a log. Come on, call on in.
Or
with
give us an email.
Or you can give us an email with your question, and we'll get her on the air there, folks. But definitely check it out. And don't keep it to yourself. Spread the word. Tell everybody you know. Then tell everybody you don't know. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Special thanks to CCTV, producer PK for all their efforts. See you folks out there in TV land. We'll be back later on. Toodles out there in virtual land. We hope this taping got in there. So long and good night.
Thank you, folks. You want to say anything before I turn it off, Glenn?
Yes, good night.
Good night. God bless you all, every single one of you.